What was the motivation for the First Crusade? There was no singular event for historians to look back at as a cause for such action. So how did it come about? The Byzantine Empire had suffered the invading Turks for decades, but in the 1090s, a power struggle amongst the Turks gave Emperor Alexius an opportunity to regain lost lands. He sought aid from Western Europe due to the fact that his ever-shrinking empire did not have the means to overthrow its invaders. Pope Urban II was sympathetic to the Byzantine efforts to protect Christianity from the invading Muslims, and also saw the opportunity to unify the Eastern and Western churches under his domain. Early propaganda voices expressed concern for the Eastern churches, and their liberation became the call for the need for crusade. To this end, Jerusalem made an excellent point of reference. What place held greater import to the hearts and minds of Christian pilgrims? And campaigning for Christian liberation coincided neatly with pilgrimages to that great city. It is important to note that although Christian pilgrims suffered attacks from the Turks, historical study has shown that these were isolated events and similar attacks were made by the Arabs and Greeks who held Jerusalem before the Turks. There was not a sudden escalation of violence that sparked the crusade efforts. Rather, the lack of unity amongst the Muslims gave the Byzantine Empire the opportunity to gain that which had been lost. In November of 1095, Urban gave a speech in Clermont calling for what would become the First Crusade, offering indulgences to those who would take up the cause and die as Christian martyrs. Urban's call for the crusade satisfied Augustine's definition of a just war because he did not express a desire to gain territory but to liberate Christian churches. And as Pope, he had the authority to make this declaration. As it was a call for liberation, it also satisfied Augustine's demand that love be the main pursuit of organized attack. Urban's call was well received, and Alexius would see Western forces come to the aid of the Eastern churches.
The people of the Western Church were very enthusiastic about the First Crusade, so enthusiastic, in fact, that some people set out before the main body even embarked for Jerusalem in the year 1096. Unfortunately, a majority of these people fell victim to the hazards along the way, due mostly in part to ill planning from lack of food, lack of fresh water, and lack of money, but also disease including dysentery and heat stroke. The main body embarked from Italy and France for Constantinople and ultimately Jerusalem in the year 1096 by land. A majority of the Crusaders went by land due to the fact that the Latin Church did not own many ports in the Middle East. And after a grueling trek along most of Europe, the Crusaders arrived in Constantinople. By around 1097, roughly 10,000 Crusaders had gathered in Constantinople. After collecting refreshed supplies and Crusaders, the body set out for Jerusalem. Along the route to Jerusalem, the Crusaders attacked several cities, including the city of Nicaea, which they took with very little trouble, and the city of Antioch, which was a strongly protected Turkish city. The city of Antioch, after a 7-month siege, fell to the efforts of the Crusaders, and the Crusaders embarked for their main effort, Jerusalem. In the year 1099, in the month of June, the Crusaders arrived in Jerusalem. After approximately a 5-week siege of Jerusalem, the city walls fell in the year 1099, in the month of July. After the Crusaders had taken the city of Jerusalem, they created many Crusader states, including the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Edessa, the Principality of Antioch, and the County of Tripoli. Initially, the Muslim efforts were not able to counteract the Crusader effort, but eventually the Muslims began to reunite under the leadership of Ahmad al-Din Zaghi. And it was after the first city fell to Muslim effort, which was Edessa, that the Pope called for a second crusade. So the First Crusade, although a military success, resulted in a second crusade without a definite end.